In this episode, we're going to talk about the top 9 questions that I have found to be the most helpful and impactful for myself personally in figuring out how I'm going to max out and dominate the year in 2025. My name is Gabriel Schickler. I'm the host and founder of the Operation Paragon podcast. I've spent over 5 years immersed in the personal development space, and now I'm hoping to pass on some of what I've learned to you and to document my journey as I continue to grow and hopefully improve. First, 365 days, completely arbitrary measurement. If you're watching this, January 1st, January 30th, March, October 2025, it doesn't matter. These are questions that I have found to be hugely impactful in just shaping how to approach life, get your mind right, figure out what you really want, and how to get after that. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So we all know New Year's resolutions don't stick. We've all seen people and probably, at least, for me, been the person that says new year, new me, and then absolutely nothing changes. Looking back, for example, 2024, I learned a lot. I got a lot of tools, a lot of tactics, a lot of strategies, a lot of frameworks, but materially, my situation is very similar now as it was back at the beginning of 2024. The question is, how do we change that? And that's what I've really been immersing myself in these past few days here. So there are 3 real phases, and if you don't have these, you're going to get tripped up on reaching a goal in any area. You've got your planning stage, your action stage, and then your learning stage, past, present, and future. First, you figure out, what am I going to do? What are my strategies? What are my tactics? What's the play that I'm going to run? Then you have the action stage. This is where I've screwed up a lot before. Just making all these grandiose plans and then not actually doing anything to put that in motion. So once you have your theory as to how something's going to go, you have to actually stress test it against reality. Once you've done that, then you go into your learning stage and you figure out, okay, what worked, what didn't work, how do we adjust, how do we improve? So again, theorize, test, and adjust. And the reason why it is so important to get specific about what these questions are and where you want the direction of your life to go is because if you don't start with a goal in mind, you're not going to know if you're making any progress toward it. You're not going to have any idea if you're actually getting better. You might be getting better on some arbitrary exterior metric. You might be getting better physically. You might be getting better financially or relationally. But unless you know what exactly you want, it doesn't really matter, because you could be getting better financially, but locking yourself into a career path that you don't really want to do long term. You might be improving relationships with people that you don't really want in your life because they're not the best influence for you, and so on and so forth. And so you need to have a framework for asking yourself good questions, because that will prompt introspection and in turn prompt you to reorient your life when you start to get off course and to stay focused on that thing that you really want. There's a wonderful line from Tony Robbins where he says, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of the questions you ask. And I wholeheartedly believe this. If you ask yourself to look for red cars on the road, Corvettes, something like that, you're going to see more red cars and Corvettes. If you ask yourself what's terrible about your life, you can come up with a lot of that. If you ask yourself what's good about your life, you can also come up with a lot of that. So the question is, how do you ask questions that are going to frame your life in a positive way and then get you that positive forward momentum? So with that being said, question number 1, the most fundamental question you can ever ask yourself: what do you want and who do you really want to be? And this sounds generic, it sounds obvious, but most people really, as we said, have no idea. That's a huge problem. And there's also not really a single easy answer for it. There's this wonderful exercise that's been recommended by Joe McCarthy, who's been a previous guest on the podcast, called the 7 Levels of Why, and a lot of other influencers and mindset coaches and things like that will recommend this as well, where essentially what you do is you say, okay, I want X. I want to train jujitsu in 2025. And then you say, okay, why do I want to train jujitsu? And that takes you down to level 2. Well, I want to train jujitsu because I think that, just men should be physically competent. Okay, that's level 2. Level 3, why do I think men should be physically competent? Well, I think we have a duty to protect ourselves and those around us from harm and to be able to intervene in dangerous or undesirable situations. Okay, the level 3. Level 4, why do I believe men have that duty? and so on and so forth. And you go all the way down to level 7, and that helps you to get really to the core of what you believe and to find a why that's deep enough that it will give you that reason to keep going when things get tough. Because it's not a question of if things get tough, they will. It's a question of whether or not your reason for persevering is going to be greater than that adversity or whether it's going to break you. So that's really what we're dealing with here. Another really important framework in what you want was taught to me by a mentor a long time ago, the do have be framework versus the be have do framework. In the first one, you tell yourself, I need to do this so I can have this, so I can be this. Whereas in the second one, you say, I'm going to be this thing so I can do this and have this. It sounds subtle at first, but if you think about it, the first one is very much an imposter frame because you don't have this identity of what you want to be. And so you're trying through your action to force your way through it, force your way through it, force the result. The problem with that, of course, is that once you get there, you're going to feel like an imposter and you're going to self-sabotage and draw yourself away from that. Versus the be, have, do, you decide, I am the type of person that is X. So therefore, what I do is going to be in alignment with that. You've already changed your identity, who you're choosing to be, and so your actions are a natural outgrowth of that as opposed to a break from the norm that you're eventually going to return back to that you think is less than you really want, but you just can't break through for some reason. And that's something that personally I've dealt with a lot before. An important subset of this too is the question of what do you want and what have you been told to want? A lot of people don't draw this distinction, and it's not obvious until you start looking for it. And then when you do, you say, oh, wow, I've been told that I should want this thing because XYZ. I should want to settle down, get the white picket fence, all this stuff because XYZ. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing whatsoever. I find that to be a pretty admirable objective myself. But the one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work for us because we're all individuals. We all have unique positioning, opportunities, goals, desires, and so on. And so to just assume that wanting what everybody else wants is really going to make you fulfilled at the end of the day is a losing proposition. Finally, the other question we can derive from what do you want is what are you willing to sacrifice? Because something that I have done a lot before is to say that I want to be hyper successful, I want to be a super high speed entrepreneur, I want to do all these things. But then when it comes down to actually take the action to get there, I haven't actually taken action in alignment with that. So do you want not just the result that looks nice, but do you want the pain and the suffering and the hard work that it's going to take to get there? That is a hard one lesson that I wish I could communicate to people in my life to help them get ahead of where I was, because that took me forever to learn, is the idea that you don't just magically step into whatever it is, like the trial, whatever it is you want. The trials in your life are there specifically for you to prove that you deserve that. The reason that the top 1% is the 1% is because they have done the things and they have suffered through the challenges that have broken the other 99%. And that's not an injustice, that's just math. And if you don't want to be in the top 1% in Olympic athletes, that's fine. Maybe that's not what will bring you fulfillment. Maybe that's not what you're built to do, but some people are. So figure out, where are you meant to be that 1% in your life? And what are you willing to sacrifice to get there? Your breaking point is going to be different than probably most other people's. That's totally fine. There's not a one-size-fits-all answer, as we've said, and there aren't really any wrong answers. There are just gradations of right answers. Some of them are going to be better fits for you, some of them won't be. So don't put pressure on yourself in thinking that you might choose the wrong answer, because the good news is you have more time, and part of this life is making mistakes and learning from them and adjusting. So don't put that pressure on yourself. Question number 2. If this year determined the direction of the rest of your life, what would you want from it? This is a derivation of that much more popular question that we've all heard. If this was your last year, if this was your last day, what would you do? I don't find that question to be particularly helpful, because although it does get you thinking about what matters, it makes you think along a very limited short-term time frame. If I knew that I was going to get hit with a lightning bolt or killed by a meteor tomorrow, no matter what I did, I'd empty my bank accounts, I'd give all my belongings to my siblings and charities and friends and all this stuff. But I'm not betting on that happening, so I'm going to keep these things and I'm going to have some sort of a longer term framework. So imagine with this question that you are going to live another 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, God willing, 80 years. But the next 365 days, January 1st to the end of December 2025, is the only time in your life where you will have the agency to affect the direction of your life. And then every moment from then forward is just going to be you playing out the script that you've already written for the rest of your life. If this year were the only year that you could write the script for the rest of your life, and your actions this year directly determined the direction of the rest of your life, what would you do? What would you go after? Who would you want to become? There are a lot of tremendous resources for really figuring out tactically what to do here. Patrick Bet-David at Valuetainment had a terrific video he put out years ago on writing a one-page business plan, which sounds like it's just related to entrepreneurship, but it's actually focusing on a more holistic view of life. Same thing, Sean Whalen's book, How to Make Shit Happen. Simple, easy read. It's like a 16-point font, no fancy words, pretty short and to the point. That also gives an excellent framework tactically if you're looking for that, and it's like $7 on Amazon or something. Great book. Most resources that you look at along these lines are going to divide life into different categories. So financial, physical, spiritual, relational, emotional, psychological, so on. Everyone is a little bit of a different categorization, but at the end of the day, it's to look at an all-encompassing area of life and say, what specifically do I want in this area? So if we can make that question more precise, if this year determined the direction of every relationship you would have for the rest of your life, if this year determined the direction of your financial security for the rest of your life, if this year determined the direction of your physical health and ability and vitality for the rest of your life, what would you do? And that framing gets you thinking about not just what you value now, but what you will value long term and what's going to serve you the best. Question number 3, what are you optimizing for? This is probably one of the most painful questions that I've asked myself recently because it's difficult to see the disconnect sometimes between what we say we want and what we say we value and then what we actually do. There's a wonderful quote from Peter Drucker, who you probably know has written a lot of books and things of that nature in kind of the leadership management type space. One of those lines says, "Tell me what you value and I might believe you, but show me your calendar and your bank statement and I'll show you what you really value." That was a kick in the gut for me. Because a lot of the things that I've said I value, I just like haven't devoted time to. And so that has been a terrific wake-up call. So step number 1 would be to do an audit for 2024 and figure out what went well, what didn't go well, what you want to do more of, what you want to do less of, right? What are you optimizing for? What in how you're spending your energy, which is, time and money, what is that directed toward? What is it doing for you? Question number 1 in that audit, when did you feel most alive? What were you most fulfilled doing? What were you most excited about, most inspired by? When did you just wake up and just want to run through a wall? And secondarily, when did you feel the opposite? When did you feel the most stuck, dead, complacent, trapped? What were the things that you just really psyched yourself out about? You felt stuck. You didn't know how you were going to get through it. The stuff that you just straight up avoided, so on and so forth. And by doing that, you can figure out the things that are better suited for and the things that you're less well suited for. Number 3 would be, what are your top 3 achievements from 2024 and what are your top 3 opportunities for growth? Not failures, not setbacks, opportunities for growth. Because we're not looking right now for the things that you just couldn't manage at all. The 3 areas that had the most teaching potential, which were probably some of the most painful for you, as they were for me at least, in really just looking backward and saying, hey, I did this well, I didn't do this well. So that's a good indication of what your current strengths are and what your current weaknesses are. And because you're conscious of them, they're probably the most important weaknesses for you to work on at the moment. Number 4 would be, what were your dominant emotions in the past year? What do you want to be the emotional baseline of 2025? Do you want it to be really exciting and stressful and terrifying and high speed and always moving? Do you want it to be calm? Do you want it to be slow? Do you want things to move gradually? Do you want to um, shoot up like a rocket in some area of your life? Do you want to have a slow incremental build to get a good foundation of success? What do you want your emotional state to be? Because that, among many other things, but that specifically is one of the greatest influencers that I've found to just affect the overall quality of my life and how satisfied I am with my day-to-day existence, we could say. Um, and then the fifth in that for the year audit would be, what percentage of your goals did you accomplish this past year? Usually, it's very low for most people because, again, they say they want to do something, but they have no plan. They have no idea how they're going to learn if they do execute the plan. And they, most importantly, don't actually take the action and test if their plan actually works. So what percentage of your goals did you accomplish? This is a different video. We're not going to cover it too much right now. Set big goals. Set goals that are going to push you. Set goals that are going to force you to get outside your comfort zone, and not just the goals that you know are achievable, because those aren't really much in the way of goals at all. And when you look back on this year, or 2025, whenever you're watching this, you're going to say, well, could have done better, but 2026, that's going to be my year for real. It's like present moments when you're going to make that change. So is it going to happen or not? Question number 4. What did you know you should have done this year? This is also a very sobering one for me, because oftentimes the things that we most avoid and we most procrastinate on, but we know deep down we really should do, are the opportunities that we have for the deepest growth. Another question as a follow-up to this would be, what identity shifts must you make to do it? What would you have to believe about yourself for you to not procrastinate? So for me, for example, a really big issue was making sales calls. Because I didn't believe that I really deserved success. I didn't really believe that I was cut out for it, that I could genuinely help people, that people would like me. I had a ton of these limiting beliefs. And those all fade away if you shift your identity to believe, no, I do have people's best interests at heart. I do want to help them. I do deserve success when I am helping other people. And that's just a natural consequence of that, right? And this isn't to say that you should try to delude yourself, trick yourself into doing something that just you don't really deep down believe is true. But pushing aside the limiting beliefs and the self-sabotage and everything like that, who do you really want to believe that you are deep down? And what does that person do, right? And chances are that person learned from and grew from and suffered through the things that you convince yourself would be the most difficult and things that you procrastinate the most on. At least, again, this is what I've found. Ed Milet has a wonderful analogy on this where he talks about your inner thermostat setting, which is you've got this baseline, and if you get too successful or too far below whatever your baseline is, you're automatically going to either start heating up or cooling down to get back to that baseline because that's your comfort zone. And so the question is, how do you raise that baseline? How do you raise your default self-perception and beliefs about yourself and identity to be that high energy, driven, successful, virtuous, whatever you want to be person? One final note on this topic. I do firmly believe that God and the devil are real. I think that God is superior to the devil, but the devil does have a say in our lives. And if you view the devil as essentially a malevolent force that hates you and wants you to fail in this world and the next, it's not an accident that we have so much desire to procrastinate and drag our feet and not really get after it. Because think about it. If you were the devil for yourself and you knew, because the devil knows a lot more about you than you know about yourself, and you knew where you had the potential to be the strongest, you, as we're imagining you're the devil, would do everything in your power to prevent that person from realizing their greatest strengths. Because the second you do that, it's game over. It's done. But if you can keep them weak and broken down and doubting themselves and self-sabotaging in that very area, where they have the potential to be the strongest, that is precisely the spot where you can do the most damage. And so, of course, you're going to do that. That's like Sun Tzu 101, right? So we have this exact same thing going on here. It's not an accident that you have these challenges in your life. And they are specifically what is, once you push through them, going to build you into the stronger, better, more resilient, more virtuous version of yourself and the person that you really ultimately want to become, because that's who you're made to be. I'm getting fired up. All right, question number 5. Actually didn't intend this, but this is a nice sequel to that thought. What is God asking of you? What is the next step in your mission? This question is important because it takes you from thinking just about yourself, just about what I want in this very inward focused dimension of reality, but rather, what are you built for? What is the service that you are positioned here to render to your fellow man and the rest of the world and history itself and everything in a way that is much more powerful and personal and deliberate in this specific moment, in your specific position, than any other person in history ever can? Because that reminds you, at least it does for me, reminds me that I'm not just an accident that's on this tiny little dust ball spinning through the cosmos that's going to disappear in 80 years and then just be forgotten. I am here at this exact point in history for a specific reason. So are you. What is that reason? What is the next step in your mission? It's tough to answer. You got to get quiet. You have to get still. You have to listen. And you have to learn to trust your intuition as well. If you're a scrupulous person like me, you can find any number of reasons to doubt yourself. Well, do I really want that? Is that thing good enough to really push me to the end? I don't know. And you just go down this endless rabbit hole of self-doubt, and you never actually realize that person that you're made to be. So don't try to see the whole journey, because that's not for us to know. All you need to know is what the next step is. And once you take that one, the step after that one will become apparent, and so on and so forth. And you can probably see this in your own life. If you look backward, you can see perfectly how everything connects and how things that seemed accidental wove themselves together into some beautiful event or circumstance or conversation or relationship or whatever in your life. But in the moment, it seemed completely random. That's how it is. We're not meant to know the future. We're just meant to know the past and take our best guess in the present. So that's my 2 cents on that. Number 6, what are the monthly, weekly, and daily benchmarks to hit your goals? This is one of the big issues. People try to eat, as the saying goes, an elephant in one bite. Doesn't work too well. You got to eat that elephant one bite at a time. And so you can set a big goal, a super audacious goal. For me, I want to make 6 figures for the first time in my life by the end of 2025. Will that happen? Not if I just say I have that big goal and then do absolutely nothing until December 15th of next year and then go, wow, where did all that time go? I have no idea. No, it's going to happen if I say, okay, well, to make 6 figures in a year, I'm going to need to make, what is that? $8,000, $9,000 a month, which translates to this much a week. And to make that much in a week, I'm going to need to, let's just say, like, make this many sales calls. I have a closing percentage of this many people. So if I make this number of calls, just by the math, I'm going to make this much money at a minimum. And then, yeah, just break that down. And so you know every single day what is the minimum benchmark that you need to hit to progress toward that goal. And you're not going to see too much in the short term, but if you just put in the work consistently, day over day, that's the only real division between the hyper successful people and the ones that aren't. If you read any of the literature, you watch any successful people talk that aren't just like grifters and gurus and everything, you'll see they just committed to something and they stayed consistent for usually years longer than anyone around them did. And so they naturally got to the front of the pack because they started running and everyone was running with them and everyone else dropped out. And now the people that are trying to run that same path are all the way back here because they're 5, 10, 15, 20, 40 years behind. And that's just kind of how the world works. So figure out what those monthly, weekly, and daily goals are, and then just say, okay, non-negotiably, I'm going to do this every single working day. And if I do that, mathematically, I'm going to hit this result. Number 7, how will I sell myself the vision? How do I stay in alignment with it? So one of the other characteristics that I've noticed of successful people is they have the vision boards and all this stuff. They visualize and they have all these mental exercises, but the common denominator is that they have some way to really see and feel themselves in that position of victory every single day. And they remind themselves of why they're doing what they're doing way more than the rest of us do, right? Um, Dan Martell, Ed Milet, Patrick Bet-David, they'll talk about, selling themselves these visions multiple times a day. They'll sit down, they have a quick reference list. They're like, okay, I want to be this person, I want to be this person, I want to do this, I want to help these people, I want to have this, so on and so forth. And they just keep building and building and building and building and building. So that's precisely what you want to do. You want to figure out what that rocket fuel is, what those ideas are, the person you could be, the things you could have, the relationships you could have, the lives you could impact. Figure out what really gets you fired up, and then remind yourself of that every day, over and over and over and over and over again, until it's ingrained in your subconscious mind. And it's fueling you so that when you run into the hard times, you run into the barriers, it's like, okay, of course this was going to happen. That's life. But you know what? I'm here for it. And I know that on the other side of it, the reason I'm doing this is more powerful than whatever this momentary pain or frustration or struggle is. I'm going to push through this because what I'm doing it for matters more than me just being a little uncomfortable for a little while. This is also repeated in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, which is probably one of the most commonly recommended personal development books out there. It says, if I can see it and believe it, I can achieve it. Very simple idea, but if you can see something, if you can see yourself becoming someone, doing something, having something, and really feel it on a basically an energetic level, you have what you need to go after it and take that idea and make it into a reality for yourself. Number 8, what are the foreseeable pitfalls and how do you respond to them? This one's really important because it sounds great to say, hey, I'm going to do all these awesome things. Okay, are you going to back that up with action? Because life isn't going to just hear you saying, oh, okay, well, you want to make 6 figures this year. That's nice. Okay, good luck. Have fun. Good job. It's just going to be smooth sailing, easy road, nothing. No, you're going to say that, and life is going to go, oh, really? Okay, prove it. Let's see what you got. Let's bring it on. Let's see what you got. And life's going to throw speed bumps and difficulties, and you're going to get super sick one month, and then your family's going to need a whole lot of help this other month. And well, I was just really tired, all those days. I didn't really feel like making all those sales calls, and so I'll do that later. And you're going to have all these things pop up, random things that go wrong with, like, you need to get a new laptop or your car breaks down or whatever. Life is going to throw you a lot of curveballs to see if you can really push through. And so don't just prepare for things to go well, prepare for when things get bad. How are you going to react? What are the most likely things that can break in your system? What are the weakest links in the system and the plan that you've put together? And what can you do to compensate for those? So that when somebody or when life makes a move you're not expecting, you say, okay, well, I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm going to take a deep breath, step back, analyze it, figure out what the issue is, address it. Obviously, that's going to look different for every area of life and every situation that you have, but that's the basic idea. You pre-game these things so that when life makes a move, you go, oh, yeah, of course that happened. No, I'm ready for that. Bring it on. And it doesn't phase you, and you can stay focused and consistent on your path instead of going, oh, man, shoot, where did that come from? I need to get out of here. The house is on fire. It's like, no, just put out the fire. Keep moving. You're fine. You're still alive. You're still kicking, right? You're still in the game. And finally, number 9, if I were my best friend, what would I do and what would I say to me? This one I really like. I got this based off the title of a recent episode of the Ed Milet Show. I forget even what the title was. It was something about auditing your friend group and your circle. But I started asking myself, I was like, do I really behave like I'm my best friend? Like, I should be on my team pretty much more than anyone's, because, like, I have to live with me whether I like it or not. So, I might as well be on my own team. But I think that's a really good frame, because what it does is it takes you outside of yourself, and you look at your situation more objectively and say, hey, if I were someone that really loved and cared about me and wanted me to do the best and wanted me to just kill life, just dominate the year, dominate the decade, dominate existence to really make a mark. If I really cared about this person, what advice would I give them? What what would I do for them? What would I help them to see? What would I try to influence them toward? Not in a way that's going to uh, influence or directly benefit me, but in a way that's going to help them to realize their potential in a more altruistic way. Just because I love this person, I want them to succeed. It's not from any selfish motive. And if you look at that, it's like, yeah, well, if I were staying up past midnight every day and not really getting to the gym and eating a bunch of junk food and spoiler alert, um, Christmas. Things have not been the best the past week, let's say, but we're getting back on track. But regardless, if I saw myself doing all that over several months or a year or week or even just a couple days, whatever it is, I'd hope my best friend would be like, "Hey, Gabe, what are you doing, man? Like, you know you're better than this. You know you're built for more. What are you doing? Come on." And so to picture that voice of someone that really loves you and cares for you and wants you to win, holding you to who you've said you want to be, I think is really powerful. And so I just love that framework. So, in summary, number 1, what do you want and who do you want to be? Number 2, if this year determined the direction of the rest of your life, what would you want from it in each area? Number 3, what are you optimizing for? Number 4, what did you know you should have done this past year? Number 5, what is God asking of you? What is the next step in your mission? Number 6, what are the monthly, weekly, and daily benchmarks I must have to hit my goals? Number 7, how will I sell myself the vision and stay in alignment with it? Number 8, what are the foreseeable pitfalls and how will I respond to them? And number 9, if I were my best friend, what would I do and what would I say to me? Thank you very much for watching or listening wherever you guys are. If you got value out of this, please subscribe, follow, so on and so forth, again, on the various platforms. Stick around. I really believe that we as young men have a tremendous duty to ourselves and the rest of the world, especially in this age, to get our act together and be the people that we're really called to be and to be the examples and to inspire other people and help them and lift them up. So please share this with someone if you feel like they would benefit from it, and just stay committed. Reach out if there's any way I can support you guys, if I can help you with anything. This project is all about us getting better together and winning together, because that's how we change the world. So thank you very much again. Hope you guys all crush your 2025. I gotta find my notes here. There we go. Ow. Oh. Not just hit my head on the lamp. Don't worry about it. Number 6, how will I sell myself the vision and stay in alignment with it? Oh, wait, no, sorry.